Hi, everyone. Welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A on Mondays, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Today, we are not only on YouTube Live, but we're also on Facebook Live and Instagram Live. So lots of lives going on. I see you, Instagram. Okay, we are going to take some questions from the YouTube audience that has already gotten us started. We have a question from one of my favorite return questioners, Matt Anderson. Welcome. He says, I'm sure since you've started the podcast, you've already seen significant progress, but what event or key metric will convince you personally that the national dialogue has indeed changed? Okay, so there's a lot of things that are involved in what would change with that. The key thing that I would think of really is what happens when you interact with somebody in your average conversation. So I would say this. I have seen actual changes. I wouldn't say I've seen changes in the national dialogue since I started my podcast. But I would say that when I talk to people in general, I get much more openness than I did before. There's a lot more sources out there that are getting the job done here. And it's really exciting, whether it's Howard Schubiner or David Hanscom or Eddie Lindenstein. There's all kinds of podcasts happening, Nicole Sachs. But there's also tons of things on the internet, including YouTube. You can look up things like Laura Mosley's studies about neuropsychology, Dan Siegel. All these different people are putting information out there, and it's all coalescing around the same stuff. So I'd say, Matt, the thing that I'm seeing that makes a big difference is that I'm seeing a difference in your average person. That's when we know the shift is happening. So much more I could say about that, and an excellent question. We got a question from Mike P., another return commenter. And by the way, for those of you who are new here, if you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I will get back to you personally. And if you want to come on the show to talk to me directly, whether by video or audio, it's www.callcrushingdoubt.org. And I look forward to talking with you. So Mike P. says, hey, Dan. So as I told you via text, which he did, I was there. I've been seeing slow but steady improvements, conquering one trigger after another. Last week, I played my first actual game of basketball. Got through the game. Nice work, Mike. That takes a lot, I know from experience. Then he had a flare-up later. He says, prior to the flare, my doubt was consciously down to almost zero, and my fear was also down. Bravo. Why do flares seem to bring people back to square one with their belief in the diagnosis? Well, great question, Mike. The reason that flares take people all the way back sometimes is because that's their design. Doubt wants you to doubt fully. It wants you to, the more it gets you to doubt, the better. So it doesn't just get you knocked back a little bit. If it can knock you back fully and then you come back only halfway, it's happy with that. So it's really by design. It wants you to doubt as much as possible. And it tends to come up with very, very strong doubt triggers and pouncing on things and getting you to worry about things when you're really close to getting better. I've seen this happen many times where people are basically all the way better. And then they try something and it's a trigger, or they are stuck in a situation with themselves where a flare-up happens and then they start to doubt. It is a sign of progress when you got your doubt down so low, and you can get back there, and you will get back there faster and faster each time. So keep up the good work. Okay, another question from Matt. Random question. How did you come up with the instrumental for the podcast? Oh, thank you for asking, Matt. I actually wrote that. I am a musician, so I play guitar and I sing, and I play a little bit of piano. And I was just thinking through a theme. I was sitting at the piano, and I came up with a kind of slow, methodical rhythm. I did get some help from a friend of mine who put some of the sounds in, but it was me who picked out those sounds and decided what works for the feel that I'm looking for. So that's a great random question. I'm glad you asked. And let me know if you have other questions about it. Okay, more from Mike. I'm beginning to think if I truly believed it was TMS pain and not structural. Now, remember, TMS is tension myositis syndrome. That's what Sarno called the musculoskeletal issues that would come up with this, but it has come to be generalized. And now there are other terms for it as well, PBD, MBS, mind-body issues, the mind-body experience, you name it. We got many words for it. But back to what Mike was saying. I'm beginning to think if I truly believed it was TMS pain and not structural, I would not have any fear because fear would be irrational. Does fear of pain only exist if someone doubts its cause? I need to make sure this is a separate question or not, Mike. Hold on a second. And then he says, as a metaphor, it would be ridiculous to be scared of a cardboard cutout of a bear, but yet I am scared of pain that is non-structural. Is it only because I think unconsciously the bear is real? Yes, that's very well said. And yes, I agree with it. Actually, if you look at what happens with kids with cardboard cutouts, a cardboard cutout of a shark or a spider, and it's not just kids, by the way, adults can have this too. They struggle with feeling like it's okay to go touch that cardboard cutout. And, that tells you all you need to know. They know rationally it is not a real thing. But here's the thing. Let me back up, actually, because I would say this. Yes, Mike, your answer is correct. It's only because you think unconsciously the bear is real. But remember, in the unconscious, there are no opposites. In the unconscious, it is real. It is real and fake at the same time. So we can use logic to conquer the unconscious, but we can't expect the unconscious to be logical. And that is one of the keys. I do think, though, and this was a very key point in me getting better, was to remind myself, do I really want to go down the path of believing something that is so illogical? That helped me over and over when I thought to myself, and when I was trying to get up from the floor from doing my back stretches when I used to do them, and I thought to myself, why would I need to get up in a strange way if I truly believed this? So the thinking you have there, Mike, is actually very key in getting you past doubt. And I'm sure it is part of how you got to a place where you didn't have doubt. So keep it up. You'll get there. You're going to have moments where you get knocked back. Okay, we're going to go to some questions that I have waiting in the wings. This question has waited 3 weeks, so it's time for me to break it out. This is from Susan W. She says, heard on a Lissa Rankin interview that you can't be in a sympathetic state to heal, other than the already known ways of deep breathing, meditation, etc., which doesn't necessarily work when you are in a predominant sympathetic state due to the ongoing stress caused by a variety of symptoms. I know this has greatly affected my nervous system, and I am really fighting the med issue based on what I have researched. How do you get yourself more parasympathetic using mind-body work? Any thoughts on Lissa's statement? Okay, actually, I'm going to send this to you, Courtney, because I think we should bring this up so that people can read it, because that was a mouthful. So give me a second, guys. I'm going to send this to Courtney, and she'll put it up for us. And then I will begin answering the question. Let's see. Okay, so first of all, there's a couple of things I want to explain in the background while she gets that up. Lissa Rankin wrote a book called Mind Over Medicine. She is an MD who found that medicine was actually being quite irrational about a lot of things and not factoring in certain data. And when she looked at it, it just added up over and over and over that the mind-body was playing a big role. So that's the Lissa Rankin that Susan is referring to here. And when she's talking about a sympathetic state or parasympathetic, I'm just saying this for review because a lot of you will know this, but some won't. The sympathetic nervous system is the part of your nervous system that comes in when there is a sense of danger, real danger or perceived danger. Your heart races, cortisol comes in, adrenaline runs. Your whole system is very different when the sympathetic nervous system is going. The parasympathetic nervous system slows everything down. That's when you're relaxed. Okay, so those two different nervous systems can be at play, and when either one is out of whack, you can have some trouble. Okay, I'm glad we got this question up there now so that people can read it because it's a lot. So she's saying, well, deep breathing and meditation, that doesn't necessarily work when you're in a very big sympathetic state, and I think that's entirely correct. So now here's where she gets to her question. I know this has greatly affected my nervous system, and I'm really fighting the med issue based on what I have researched. How do you get yourself more parasympathetic, where you're calmer, using mind-body work? Any thoughts? So the reason that I developed the system the way I did, well, there were multiple reasons, I suppose, but one of the reasons it came out the way it did is that it was organizing. It gave me a sense of calm about everything because I figured out these rules really apply and they always work. So even when you think they don't work, you go back to them again. If you look at them again, you'll find that they do. Knowledge is the thing that brings the parasympathetic state about. So that's the key thing that you want to think about. And if something's not making sense and you don't feel like you have the knowledge, well, then it's time to just continue asking the questions. And it's why I say questions. I mean, it's so cliche to say questions lead to answers, but it really is the case that if you want answers, you have to ask the right questions. So I think I would say that's the key point, Susan, is you need information, but you need the right information. And a lot of times you're not getting that. You're not getting that information the way that you need to. It's something that I worked on. It's why I wrote the PDFs for people, because people needed more information. And I say this often, but those PDFs are available. You certainly can contact me about them. I also am beginning my seminars. I know I've been talking about them a lot recently. They should be extremely helpful in getting people the information they need because it's everything all at once. It's a comprehensive look at the columns, how I developed them, why I developed them that way, what it is that they do, how you can apply them. So your question, Susan, about how you can do this through mind body work, many people can get you information. I would say that my system can add to and bring you into even more of a parasympathetic relaxed state because it explains so many different aspects and it has the flexibility to explain different parts. Okay. I have sent more of the preloaded questions in, so let's bring up the next one. And let me make sure that it was sent. It wasn't sent yet. Aha. How do I expect them to put it up before I've sent it? Okay, so Courtney, I've sent those your way. Let's bring up another one. I'll just start to read it and see if we can do it without pulling it up on the screen. Okay, we've got a couple questions from Patrick C. I'm going to make sure to answer at least one of them. Here's the first. Are there any blood work tests to detect high cortisol, low testosterone, or anything else that's relevant in chronic pain cases that one can use to measure progress? And is this recommended? Okay. Now, Patrick, I will say this. As we all know, I'm not an MD, so I'm not super well versed in this. This is a case where I'd probably want to bring in Dave Clark or David Schechter or Howard Schubiner or David Hanscom, the heavy hitting MDs in the field that could answer this. But I'll give you the answer that I would say based on the science and logic that I know. There are blood work tests that are going to detect all of those things. And those things are going to go up or down in various situations. But thanks for pulling that question up. But there are certain tests that can rule certain things out. In Sarno's Divided Mind, he had a doctor, and I'm not remembering which one it was, but the second half of the book is these other mind-body doctors. I feel like it was a guy named Douglas Hoffman, but I'm not sure about this. Don't quote me on that. He said that I see people waving at me on Instagram, so I want to say hi to JJ and Jasper. Good to see you. Sarno, in the second half of the book, he had these different medical doctors talking, and one of them was a cardiologist who dealt with mind-body issues. And what he found is that there are certain medications that work on what's called hypertension, but they did not work on essential hypertension. Essential hypertension is the kind of high blood pressure, because that's what hypertension means, that is mind-body induced. So there are times where if a medication works for one thing and not for another, that can help you distinguish. I'm sure there are blood work tests that can help as well. I was working with a patient recently who said that she had a very high test for what's called cytokines. These are the things that show up in your blood. I hope I have this right, but I'm pretty sure that I do, that show up with inflammation. Here's the problem with a lot of these tests, and here's why I wouldn't say this is necessarily recommended as the main thing that you would do. If you're going to consult with a doctor, I highly recommend the people in the TMS field because they at least know about this. Otherwise, you're going to somebody who doesn't know the basics, or at least a part of the basics. They know lots of other things, but these tests can often reveal whether the body is having a response, but they are not going to reveal why the body is having a response. And a lot of doctors are not going to be able to tell you that. You can also have these things be reduced and still have symptoms. So they don't tend to correlate so much. When I think of these medical tests, I think that a lot of times what they're essentially showing is that the body is having a very real response. So as proof of a kind of psychosomatic experience in the mind becoming real in the body, this is proof of that. You can more prove that there's a psychosomatic experience than you can prove the progress. The progress really comes from results. Are you having less pain? Are you having less inflammation? Understandably, people will say, oh, but maybe it was from this other treatment, or maybe it was from time. But that's such a random answer. If you get results from somebody talking to you and it happens quickly, I think you can assume that it is a mind-body experience. Okay, we have a question from Carolyn R. She says, I know that exercise is a trigger for me. I also know that there are normal aches and pains that appear the day after a workout. My body/mind can't tell the difference between what is normal and when I should slow down or modify my program. Oh, this is a good one. I'm 62 and I want to be responsible. How do I get back to a place where I can trust myself to be the judge of my own sensations? Sounds like doubt and power need some work. Well said, Carolyn. It's absolutely the case. Just want to give a shout out to Hermawan from Instagram. Good to see you. I would say this, and let's leave this question up here because there's a lot in here. So when you say I'm 62 and I want to be responsible, I hear the doubt just coming in spades. And the worry that you're having, and it's an understandable, potentially logical one, but proves to not fit with science and logic. The body may have degenerative experience, but it does not cause pain. Your eyesight goes, it doesn't hurt. Your skin gets wrinkled, it doesn't hurt. As it turns out, degeneration in cartilage, bone-on-bone stuff, herniated discs, arthritis, this is all normal processes in the body, and none of them cause pain. So if you are saying you want to be responsible at age 62, what I want to tell you is you don't have to be any more responsible than I do at 46 or somebody at 29 has to be. Your body is fine. The thing that you need to know is that pain can be caused by a mind-body process. It can also be caused, if you get hit by a truck, or if you're playing in a basketball game and there's a huge collision, you can have an injury. So, in terms of being responsible, maybe don't go on American Ninja Warrior, but there's plenty of things you can do. You can do virtually anything that you want to do at age 62. The only thing you need to worry about is slipping and falling, breaking a bone. And even in that case, you'll heal within, 8 to 12 weeks, sometimes 6 to 8, sometimes 4 to 6. Your body heals from it all. So the thing that you can do to learn to trust this is to learn to recognize all of the science and the logic. And we're going to need to find your way into this, Carolyn. All the science and the logic points to the fact that you can trust yourself already, because there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to cause pain unless it's a mind-body experience. As long as it's not a blunt force collision, which, or a cut, those things are easy to rule out. The pain hurts right when it happens. Other than that, you're dealing with a mind-body process. So there's a lot of these triggers that are going to go on. And yes, exercise is a trigger for everybody. Everything's a trigger. You walk up the steps, that's a trigger. So watch out for triggers, challenge them. This fits with what Mike P was saying about playing basketball. That's a big trigger. And he got past it. And every time you get past it, it helps. Doubt will try to fight back. You push it right back. Okay, let's pull up a question from Diehard Patriot. He says, when going through 3 columns after a symptom comes up, how can you tell you found the cause? Will the symptom go away right away if you found the cause? Okay, let's leave this up there too, because even though it's a shorter question, it's got a lot in it. So there's no hard and fast rule about this, but I will say this. If it's an emotions column issue, and you hit on the right emotion and the specific emotion, it will drain away right away. Sometimes you'll find partial reduction. If you get partial reduction, maybe you got the general thing right, but you didn't get the specific right. Or maybe you got the specific thing right, but not the general. You get them both, and it's an emotions column issue, and yes, that symptom will go away. When it comes to doubt, if you hit on the right doubt and you realize that's a problem, that is going to help you a lot. But what you're going to have to do then is get more active about it. Doubt requires even more action. It's not just recognizing the emotion. It is about doing something against the doubt. You have to answer your questions, your concerns, your confusion, your fear. It has to be answered to your satisfaction with science and logic. So that's going to take a little more work. When you hit on the exact right doubt, if it is purely a doubt issue, yes, the pain can go away. But it's got to go. Let me put it to you this way. Like with Mike Pete, you have to bring the doubt all the way down to 0 before it will fully go away. If it's still there, you got some doubt work to do. In the power department, it's a pretty similar thing to the emotions column. If you hit on the right thing, then the symptoms should come down. But again, you got to get the right general gist, and you've got to get the right specific part. Power, though, you're going to get one other element. You have to recognize how you came to feel out of power and what it's going to take for you to get back. The general question, though, is right on. If you hit on the right thing within these columns, you've got it. The one caveat is sometimes it's multiple columns at the same time. I will admit that freely. The system has to be flexible to be able to move towards these things. If it's all 3 columns, then you're going to have to address all 3 issues to get the symptom to go away entirely. But every column helps you in one form or another if it is the cause. If you hit on the cause, you'll get that symptom to go away. All right, let's pull up Jeff A's question. Let's see. He says, Dan, I have been in therapy for 5 years. I have participated in the curable groups, and that's where I got introduced to you and your work. So thank you to whoever introduced Jeff to my work. One of my themes is not feeling safe. I experienced severe childhood abuse and don't recall ever feeling safe. Oh, my God. First of all, my heart goes out to you, Jeff, but it was a shock to me to recognize I hadn't felt safe for most of my life also. I wouldn't have even described it that way. I described it in certain circumstances, but if you don't feel safe in part of your life, you're not going to feel great in terms of safety in general. And sometimes people have the experience of not feeling safe at all. But he says, I did what Dr. Dan Siegel called a coherent narrative on my childhood, in parentheses, insecure attachment. I'll explain that in a second, and understand it. I'm beginning to see how it relates to my pain. What next? So, first of all, an insecure attachment. Let's talk about that a little bit. There was a psychologist named John Bowlby. He talked about the idea of attachment, which was how easily and how much the connection between the child and the parent felt safe and good. A secure attachment is what you were looking for, where you felt you could rely on the parent, you felt that they cared about you. These are things we would hope would be the case all the time, but they really aren't. And it's not even the norm. It's not the norm to have a secure attachment with a parent. There's a lot of complicated stuff in human emotion and experience. So he's talking about understanding that in his narrative with his parents, he had what was called an insecure attachment, which is kind of around the lines of, I'm not sure how much I can depend on them. I'm not sure what's coming. There's all kinds of different forms of insecure attachment. Here's what I would say when you say, what's next, Jeff? When I hear that people have been in therapy for a long time or they haven't gotten the answers they need, I'm thinking power column work when it comes to the column system. And the core narrative is different than a coherent narrative. I don't know Dan Siegel's work on that so well, but I think it's probably going to be pretty different. Not pretty different in all ways, but pretty different in one particular way. And that particular way is, my core narrative is designed to get you to the heart of the emotion of the trauma. the emotional experience, not just the intellectual. Whereas I would think a guy like Dan Siegel, who is great for what he does and brings a lot to the field, I mentioned him earlier, can help you to understand intellectually what happened to you. But the core narrative is designed to really look at the actual emotional impact. So you'll understand it inside. And when you understand it inside, that's what can lead to a real change. All right. Now we're going to bring up a question from Kevin J. I'm going to need to explain this question. This was something that came up on the comments in one of the videos. I actually don't remember which one, but I had made a comment. I think it was actually on the last Q&A, and he wanted to know, what did I mean when I said that one of the purposes of the symptom is to make us powerful? So when I came up with the columns, I actually didn't have the power column the first time through. Here's what I understood. Everyone was talking about emotions, but I knew that doubt was playing a huge role. So I wasn't even calling them columns. I actually was just thinking it's either emotions or doubt. And you toggle between the two and you find out what's what. And I actually resolved most of my pain using that system. And then I found that I started to feel very powerful, and that the power was making the doubt go way down, and that it was making me able to handle my emotions better. And I realized, one of the things I did without even realizing it was I enhanced my power. So again, it was in retrospect that I came to understand that you can become powerful from these symptoms. Then I started working with people and I found, wow, this is really the case again and again and again. What I came to see is that this is not just something that we can utilize getting better and grow power, meaning power. It's actually something that is part of the whole condition. The condition wants you to be powerful. And I answered this in the comments, but I'm going to say it again. When you're dealing with the emotions column, you are dealing with the distraction side of the symptom feeling experience. The symptom is there to distract, to keep the emotions column from being known. When it comes to the power column, you're dealing with the communication side of the symptom. The symptom is trying to get you to recognize what has gone on in your life and how you haven't been powerful. So there's a side that wants you to hide it from yourself, and there's a side that wants you to know it. And the side that wants you to know it wants you to know it so that you can finally be powerful. It's the part that is sick of you not being powerful. I thought that was an important enough question just to bring up, and I try to do a smattering of these things. It's no reflection on which questions I do bring up or don't. Sometimes I just think that's something I want to talk about today. A couple people waving on Instagram, so I want to say hi to them. We've got Abby J. We've got Contev J. I hope I'm not saying any of these wrong. And Framework for Health Coaching. I wonder why they're here. It sounds right in line with what I think. So welcome all. Thanks for watching. We have another question coming from the YouTube feed. This is from Timo Slice. Do you feel TMS, or mind-body issues, is exclusively due to emotional neglect? I ask because of the coping mechanisms of perfectionists and goodists. Okay, wow, that's a deep one. I got to think about that for a bit. Here's what I'll say. I'm going to start with what I know I can say pretty confidently. No. TMS is not exclusively due to emotional neglect. And this is such an important question, and it's important that I say you don't have to think of yourself as having been through emotional neglect. A lot of times that's not the case. It could be that you were attended to quite well, but you feel extreme pressure to attend to everybody else. And so that pressure could lead to it. It does not have to come from bad emotional things. Sometimes it comes from good emotional things. A lot of mind-body issues come from people who are highly, highly developed. I like to say mind-body issues, or TMS, or whatever we want to call them, are the last stop on the psychological defense train. And what that means is the most developed people tend to have this as their last line of defense. Well, everybody has this as their last line of defense. The most developed people tend to have this. So, and that doesn't even come from emotional neglect. That is one source of it. Now you say I asked because of the coping mechanisms of perfectionism and goodists. Yeah, that's kind of fitting with what I was just saying. Now, I'm going to say two other things though. It doesn't have to come from emotional neglect. What I was describing is an emotional experience of a different kind. The emotional experience of needing to take care of people, feeling that pressure. So that's one area, but that's just in the emotions column. One thing I love about the columns is it really breaks it down. TMS can also come exclusively from doubt. You don't have to have anything going on emotionally in your past. You could be a person with a totally healthy experience, and then you're riding your bike and you wipe out and you get an injury and it just doesn't go away and you get worried about it. So a more fear-based person who has had a very good emotional experience can also be the kind of person who can develop TMS or mind-body issues. The power column also can create symptoms all by itself. Let's say you were raised in a great family, which a lot of people were, even if they did have some emotional neglect issues or something like that. I'm not trying to malign any particular families. Everybody, or a lot of people, were trying their best. Not everybody. We'll get to that with black and white thinking. But sometimes people can have not real emotional distress, not even a ton of doubt, but feel that they're not allowed to be powerful. Somehow they didn't feel like it was okay. It could be that they looked up to these parents who were wonderful parents, but never allowed themselves to be that powerful. And so maybe a part of you is driving for that power. So there's 3 columns that can do it, and there's different aspects within each column. So that was a long-winded, complicated answer to that, but hopefully it was helpful. Thank you for the question. Let's pull up another one from Patrick C. We're going to pull up the second one he had, which says, what to do about people who have weird nerve sensations that have been blamed on spinal disc issues or restless leg syndrome. They're not talking about pain. Is nerve dysfunction a real thing or just TMS? I know about the MRI spine studies that don't correlate to pain, but what about non-pain symptoms? Okay, love this question. Yeah, I don't think in terms of pain or other symptoms. I think of the entire body as your brain. I say your body is a flowing emotion. And so what that means is anything that the body can do can be co-opted by a mind-body experience. Not just pain, but nerve issues, reflexes. Restless leg syndrome is 100% TMS. There is no question at all in my mind. I have had times where I feel more anxious, and I wouldn't say I have restless leg syndrome exactly, but it's, there's a feeling of unrest and movement, and I'll twitch and stuff like that as I'm falling asleep and stuff like that. So it sounds all messed up, but it really is just the human condition. Nerve dysfunction, is it a real thing? There are severe cases related to injuries where there can be temporary nerve dysfunction. I do not believe that nerve dysfunction should last. I think usually it ends up being TMS. I'll defer a little bit to the MDs in the TMS world. I'm not going to defer to MDs who don't understand the mind-body process, though, because I'm sorry, they're just not qualified to answer that. So there's all kinds of non-pain symptoms. Thank you for bringing that up, Patrick, and let me know if I've answered that well enough. We have a question coming in from Instagram, so I'm going to answer that now. This is from Chuck Brown Productions. Good to see you, Chuck. Just tuned in, and sorry if this is off topic, probably not, but any suggestions for when one is in the middle of a flare-up, how to get out of the pain? This question is a great question for multiple reasons. One thing I want to highlight for you, Chuck, is I can tell you're a goodist already because you think that your question's off topic when it's right on. And that's the kind of thing we goodists do. We worry we're being a bother or we're asking a question that people won't like. This is a good question. So now let me get your actual question. Any suggestions for when one is in the middle of a flare-up, how to get out of the pain? Okay, so we use the columns even in the middle of a flare-up. I want you to try to think of which column is applying. Is it that you've got fear going on right then? Is it that one of your emotional themes has gotten kicked up? Is it that power has gotten brought down, deactivated, or there's some power threat? Go through your columns, and don't spend a long time on each column either, Chuck. Go through one by one. Just be like, is there an emotion thing? I'm not seeing it in my list of emotional themes. All right, I'm going to go to doubt and fear. I'm going to see, has anything come up there? Then I'm going to go to power. And if I miss it, I'm going to go back. Remember not to treat the middle of a flare-up any differently than any other time. You're still a moment-to-moment being. You still have a mind-body experience going on, and you can master this through the columns. If you don't get it that time around, try to think about it this way. You are in the process of working on getting better and stronger and more confident about this. Thank you for asking the question, Chuck. That was a good one. All right, Matt Anderson has another comment or question. Let's see what he says. I had this amazing experience years before knowing about mind-body process when I met a medium in Belize. Well, cool. I had a small lower back pain, and he knew I felt it without mentioning it to him. And within seconds, the pain disappeared. Really interesting. Without him applying any touch. What do you think of psychic mediums and their ability to heal with just their presence and ability to speak to past loved ones? Maybe off topic a tad, but curious on your thoughts. There's really nothing off topic that is going to come up in this experience. I want to answer your questions. You guys have questions. It doesn't matter what it is. My job is to answer all questions. And it's a really interesting one. What I would say about it is this. I don't really know what I think of psychic mediums and things like that. I especially don't know about the ability to speak to past loved ones. I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm pretty agnostic about that kind of thing because I'm a science and logic guy, and I just can't know what happens with that kind of stuff. What I will say, though, is that people who work in such fields like that, to me, they're evidence of the mind-body process. Again, I just want to be clear on this. I'm not weighing in on what, the value of psychics or anything like that. I will say this: I don't consider them to fit with what I do at all. What I do is totally based on science, logic, observation, trial and error with your own experience, building your system, that sort of thing. But the fact that they also speak to a mind-body process adds to the evidence of things. It's similar to how Lissa Rankin actually wrote a lot about this stuff in Mind Over Medicine. Voodoo stuff. Do I believe in voodoo? No, not really. But do I believe that people believing the hex can lead to problems? Yeah, I actually do believe that. And so I guess that's the way I would say it, Matt, is that I don't have any particular leaning in whether these people can do these kind of seemingly magical things. But I would say that it's evidence that one's own belief system leads to a lot of different things. The mind is incredibly, incredibly powerful. We have another question coming in from Instagram. This is from Professor Pixel. I like that name. So tell me why lots of people with scoliosis have pain, but TMS claims it doesn't cause pain. So here's what I'd say to it. I want you to do some follow-up on this if need be. I would say that people who are mind-body practitioners would not say that scoliosis doesn't have a correlation with pain potentially. There's a difference, though, because we're talking about whether it's causal or correlated. There's plenty of people who have scoliosis and have pain. That does not mean that scoliosis causes pain. And in fact, the studies show that it does not. What I will say is that there's a lot of people who, now scoliosis is a curvature of the spine. What I will say is when people have a lot of mind-body issues, their muscles are tight, genuinely. And they're tugging on the spine and stuff. So I think actually mind-body issues can cause scoliosis more than scoliosis can cause pain. That's what I would say to that. And I want to know what you think about that. But it's not even TMS people that claims it doesn't cause pain. It's science. It's everywhere. If you go to the PPDA website, which is a great resource, by the way, I'm trying to remember it offhand what the website is. Let me get that for you because it is important. They have a list of just tons and tons of great It's ppdaassociation.org. Go to that website. You'll find tons and tons of science. It's not really TMS that's claiming that scoliosis doesn't cause pain. It's science that's claiming it doesn't cause pain. But hopefully what I said answers your question. Much more likely that a mind-body condition could cause scoliosis than the fact that scoliosis would cause pain. So that's where you're seeing the correlation more than the other way around. Hope that's helpful. All right, let's get to another question. And we're running low on time. So if people want to put in any questions, you got maybe a couple more that we can get in. All right. We're going to go to, let's see here. We'll get to Patrick C's last question of this particular time. He says, are people who espouse a victim's mentality... hold on. I want to respond because Professor Pixel just answered. I agree. I never had a curved spine until I started having lots of low back pain. Bingo. Almost like it happened due to my mind-body shifting, trying to protect me. Yes, absolutely. Meanwhile, also, let's think about when you're feeling in danger, you kind of curl up in a ball. It's a fear response more than anything else. I expect that when you treat mind-body pain, your spine actually will probably straighten out. It's kind of funny to me that they're thinking that the spine is just curved for good. It's curved because you're bunched up. That's my guess. Okay, on to Patrick C's third question. Thanks again, Professor Pixel. That was great. Are people who espouse a victim's mentality capable of escaping mind-body symptoms? It seems many are stuck in a state of lashing out about societal injustice, and my broaching the concept of TMS, MBS would only further anger them. Wow, this is a big one too. Okay, let's leave this up. There's a lot of things I need to say about this. First of all, I really have genuine empathy for anybody who's in pain, whether they believe in mind-body process or not. It's horrible. It is no fun. People are not getting answers, and it's very frustrating. But I think that, first of all, I already said something, so it can't be first of all. But second of all, we'll go with the idea of a victim's mentality. That could be a complicated wording. I'm not criticizing the wording of the question, but more just wanting to help you think that through. That if you think about yourself as having either a victim's mentality or not, you're suddenly in a position where you could be judging yourself. So I want to be careful about that. I want to be careful about not judging people for feeling like a victim or not. You know, whatever your experience is, don't judge yourself for it. You're already in a position where it's been hard enough for you. So don't judge yourself for it. But I will say on top of it, the people who get stuck being angry in a particular way can have a hard time getting better. The funny thing is, anger is key. I say that we need to channel aggression. So I think the answer I would give to you, Patrick, is we need to channel the aggression in the right way. And what you're talking about is there's sometimes where people are not channeling their aggression in a way that's going to be so useful to them or proactive. At the same time, a lot of them have very understandable anger at societal injustice and things like that. I would say they're not mutually exclusive. Don't focus on one over the other. If you're angry about societal injustice, there's plenty of it to go around. Yes, let's be angry about that. Let's also be angry, though, about the thing that's going to get you out of this. Let's not sacrifice yourself to being angry in one direction when you're not getting the anger directed at the place it needs to be. Or actually another way of putting it, maybe you're directing it to the place it needs to be, but not in the way that will unlock it for you. So a lot of my system is about what do you do with these various things. My Action Steps PDF is all about that. So these are things you can check out about how to think about these things. All right, guys, we have time probably for one more question. I'll see if anybody has it from the live audience, either from Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. If not, I'll go to one of my questions that was waiting in the wings. Let's see if I've missed anything. All right, we're going to go with that. Last call. All right, here we go. We have a question from... that one's going to be too long to handle right now. We'll get into that in a second. We got another question from This one's from Diane L. We'll go with this one. Many of these people have flipped in their minds that their illnesses have been caused by a structural or a physical reason, or possibly a dietary link, a personality disorder, trauma, either big T trauma or little t trauma, with either the perception that they are being blamed for not getting better, or they are actually that they should be blamed for not getting better. So actually, this goes right in line with the last question from Patrick. I would imagine there are some huge doubts here and possibly a huge level of caution in embracing the mind-body approach. Any comments to help address these people and help them navigate these thoughts and feelings? Oh, another deep one. I said the other one was going to take a long time, but this one does too. So I'm just going to start to address this, and I may pull this up at the beginning of the next Q&A because there's more to. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you the short answer, and then I'll give you the long answer next time. Yeah, I would say these all bring up huge doubts. The question of, am I at fault about, or did I cause what happened here? That's going to lead you with major doubts, and it's a hard one to take. My rule of thumb here on this, and I think this is a good one, is just because you can be the solution doesn't mean you're the cause. In fact, it's not true. In this case, you can be the solution, but you weren't the cause at all. Understanding it is key, and we have not had the right understanding. So I am very, very excited to continue sharing what I know, my system with the columns, because it does get people the information they need that they were not getting before. And it can help them see you're not the cause. You didn't know. And that is going to be key to getting better, is to know that. But you can be the solution without being the cause. In any case, guys, thanks so much. Oh, we do have one last comment off of Instagram. I'll take this one. Chuck Brown Production says, is there somewhere that your plan, columns you mentioned in response to my question, is laid out? Yes, I have something called the 3 columns PDF. It certainly will be laid out in my seminars in much more detail, but I would say reach out to me, Chuck, at dan@crushingdoubt.org. We're soon to have our website up. Soon you'll be able to order it straight off the website. So I'll make an announcement when that happens. But for now, email me at dan@crushingdoubt.org, and I can tell you the details of how to get that information. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching, for your questions. I am very excited to do this every week. It's a highlight of my week. So thanks again. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I will get back to you personally. Thanks again for watching on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.